All right, everybody ready?
Yep.
Okay, we welcome to the meeting of the Planning Board for October 13th. This is our fifth meeting of the fiscal year. And just to note that this is not only being recorded, it is also being broadcast live. First item on our agenda is approval of past minutes. I believe we've got two sets of minutes, one for, oh gosh, I forgot to introduce ourselves. Thank you, Eddie. I saw that look. I'm Emily Ennis, chairman.
Peter Jackson, member.
William Clark, Planning Director.
Diane Colligan, Secretary.
Bernie Lynch, member.
Alex Whiteside, member.
And Ed Duffy, member.
Okay, now we'll take up the past
Okay.
minutes. So September 8th and September 22nd. And I think various corrections have been made to these, so you might want to just take a quick look and make sure they're the version that you saw. For those of you who got it by email.
I've got something.
Yes.
Emily.
Which one?
Do you have the red line?
Do I have the red line? I do not have the red line.
Is this version around somewhere?
That's the final.
Okay.
It should be in your packet that you
Oh,
received
okay.
this evening.
All right, fine.
Just double check to make sure the red line matches what you thought.
No, I'm sure that it's fine.
Ed, you had a change?
Yeah,
Which,
page, September 8th,
okay.
page 2, item 5.
Yes, 131 Elliott.
Yeah. The second line says, new drawings were where? It should read, new drawings were submitted.
I think it's
The drawings were titled.
If you go on to
Site
the next
analysis.
line.
New drawings were entitled. Okay, got
Titled,
that.
yeah.
Okay. Then the next line, next paragraph, first line. I think foundation should be a small f. These are minor things.
Okay.
Back should be a small b,
Floor should be a small f.
right? And tower structure should be small t and s.
Okay.
The tower is a small T and S.
I think not on Ed's
Tower.
version.
Oh, see,
She's looking over his shoulder.
okay. Go ahead. You got the better version to go by, Al. I give up.
All right.
Anything
My
else?
version's
On
obsolete.
September 8th?
So the changes are changing the case of on foundation to a lowercase and floor to lowercase.
Yes.
That's right.
I'll try one more time, see what happens.
Okay.
Item 6 on the last page.
Yep.
The Roche should be spelled capital D-E-S space R-O-C-H-E. Des Roche.
Ah.
Good.
I thought DeRoche, I looked at that and I said, DeRoche, what an interesting name.
The Roche, no, Des Roche.
That's
And then in the next paragraph, the first line at the end, it should read, I think, just plain citizen and not citizens S apostrophe, just citizen petition.
No, it's actually, it should be capital C S apostrophe P. That's the official title.
Citizens petition.
Yeah, citizens
With
with
a
the
bit of
capital
with-
CS apostrophe space capital P. So capital C, citizens petition
Okay,
is the official title.
with the apostrophe.
Yep,
Okay.
because it's multiple citizens in the possessive.
I move that the minutes be approved as amended.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And on to the minutes for September 22nd. Any changes?
Get it all.
I move they be approved as submitted.
Any seconds?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, excellent. Now, our next scheduled planning board meetings are October 27th and November 10th, both of them starting at 6:30 p.m. and both of them here in the John Cronin Conference Room. The next item on our agenda is Citizen Speak, and just for people who are here or who are listening in, waiting to come to the meeting, we have two public hearings continued, 131 Elliott Street at 7 o'clock and 95 Elliott Street at 7:30. We will also have members of the, or proponents for the citizens petition coming in. We asked them to come in at 7:30, and I'll update you on meetings that have happened since our last meeting. And we've also got a discussion for potential zoning articles for the annual town meeting in May, which we will take as the other items fall out from their time. So having said all of that, I'd like to invite any citizens who might be here to come forward and speak to us. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Margaret Donovan, 41 Central Avenue. At the September 8th meeting of the Planning Board, I addressed the board relative to 3 issues pertaining to 36 Central Avenue. One was the eligibility and notification of the affordable units. The second was the planting requirements on Brook Hill Road. And the third had to do with the parking issues, what has become the MBTA parking lot. At your suggestion, I attended the Traffic Commission meeting, along with Bill Sullivan from Sullivan Insurance Company and Keith Mills from the wine shop, and Mr. Clark was there. It is my people are watching this program. I can no longer bring my next-door neighbor, but I know he's at home and very interested in the disposition of those items. I know that Mr. Clark has been working diligently on them, and so I raise this as an opportunity for him to tell the board and the public what has happened since that meeting.
Okay. Bill?
The Traffic Commission met, and we talked about 1-hour signs from School Street to Brook Hill Road on the east side of Central Avenue. The Traffic Commission voted to have 1-hour parking signs, to advise the selectmen to put up 1-hour parking signs. They, at their last meeting, accepted that recommendation and passed it on to the DPW director to order new signs. Since then, Mr. Lynch is on vacation, and I don't know what the status is of the signs, but I know the signs have been ordered.
Okay, they have been ordered. All right.
We don't have enough 1-hour signs to go and pull from inventory to put them up, so
Makes
we
sense.
ordered
Terrific.
ones.
Progress?
We thought that was a great idea. I know that Mr. Clark has been working with the Moores over the Brook Hill plantings, and if he could update the board on that, we would appreciate it.
Plantings and affordable units, if you were able to do the research on those.
On the plantings, I know that I was actually out there with Michael Moore, and we were watching one of his guys take and pull the invasives that were out there, the Norway maples, and make room to put their new plants into the ground. If you went out there now, you'd see the holes where the pots are going in, or you would have before all the rain, but they're ready to go in at this point. The plants were out there, they were bunched together. They did not get planted yesterday or today. I don't know that they're going to get put in by tomorrow, probably Monday.
Okay.
Have the other improvements to the building and things that were required, have those been completed? Weren't they
They
going to
have
do
cleaned-
gutters and
They
downspouts?
did the gutters, they did the downspouts, they did a railing at the end of that cement walk. It's the same railing that they used on the building that they attached to the small building. Never been one there, but we put one in, the Conservation Commission wanted one at the end of that little walkway.
Mhm.
There now is a railing that matches up with the railings across the stream. They did clean the building, they did, they patched the roof. Every time they think they're finished, I find another spot for them to fix, but they have been really good about that hole. They've gone up and it's all clay tile,
Okay,
the
yep.
round ones, so they're up there molding stuff to make the roof work. They did put the gutters back up, they did put new downspouts on it. I was out there with the Conservation Commission, one of the Conservation Commission appointee to that project, and she's the one who picked what plants had to go and how far to cut things back.
Okay.
They did cut those things back. They have been cleaning the building. There are there's some filigree at the top of the building that Mr. Moore was not ready to take and put the power washer to it. He was afraid it would hurt it, and I think he's right. So he's had the guy over there trying to hand scrub the thing, but when the vegetation came down, you saw where the building had been tagged. So we're
Working on that.
picking on that part of it, but that's not something that he should have to be held to, but he is going to address it.
And the affordable housing, I think was the,
Before we get on to that, I do have a question about the railing. I did see the railing, very high quality, similar, I guess, from what you said to what's around the front of the building, the main building itself. But is that going to be the only railing?
That's it.
That's it?
Yep.
So what is the purpose of that railing? And people walking could end up right in the brook.
If you want to walk in the grass, you could always fall in the brook. There's never been one there. The access to the brook wasn't going to be cut off. It was more a case of the sidewalk to nowhere. There was a sidewalk that went to the wall, and if a kid was on his bike, went on the sidewalk, he could go over. With the grass and stuff, there's a little bit of a wall, so there's a curb to it.
Okay, so the railing is because of the little walk that goes in there then?
Yes.
Okay.
Also keeps you from going behind the building, just walking down and going left behind the building. If you want to go around the other side, you could, but a little bit harder. But the building is open now, so that if the policeman were to drive by Central Ave, he can actually see the back of the building from the driveway of 36 Central or 42 Central.
And the affordables?
The affordables is still an issue. I know that Mr. Murray, who is the lawyer for that project, has been talking with John Flynn. John Flynn's like, not my issue. I know that they've been to DHCD. I know they have issues out there. I know that they would like to have it as a lip, and I'm not sure how receptive the town is going to be to having a lip.
you should
that
probably
goes-
define a lip for people listening at home.
It's a local initiative project, and although I know what it is, making the explanation,
Just having local initiative project, I think, people could come up with all sorts of
Well,
meanings for
Mr.
LIPs.
Whiteside has a
so.
much better handle on that explanation than I do.
it is, we have two single apartments, and it requires that the whole development get accepted by the town, that the selectmen take all kinds of votes, and presumably they're going to want us to conduct two lotteries.
Okay, I remember these discussions.
Those lotteries are
yes.
going to be conducted, though, by the Housing Authority.
I understand, but someone's got to pay for them. I mean, it is a very cumbersome, for two units, the process, the local initiative process, which basically was designed to permit municipalities to be the sponsor of affordable housing. Here, the community is zoned requiring two affordable apartments, and they're happy to do what is necessary. And you may recall that we changed the zoning so that if this thing gets too bollocksed up, we can go ahead with the the lottery, even
That's right.
though units may not count on the affordable housing inventory. But we're sufficiently short of the 10% threshold so that 2 units is not going to be a significant number of units not to be on the inventory. And then we can maybe work in the future to get them allowed. But the DHCD has to get involved here.
Margaret, does that
Okay.
help?
Thank you.
Right.
That's
Great,
what I'm looking for.
thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak at Citizens Speak? All right. If not, we have a few minutes, 11 to be precise, before the first item on our, the first public hearing on our agenda. So I think, Bill, we can probably do the town planners report.
Okay. I've been dealing with the wind turbines wetlands appeal with town council. Today we actually had a pre-hearing session at DEP where we had to go over plans, reports, written affidavits on the wetland issues of the case. I've been dealing with town council and his staff on issues for the appeal to the local bylaw, that's it, those two right
Okay.
now. There's enough legal issues hanging out there to deal with. 36 Central Ave, we did. Under energy conservation projects for the green communities, that with Mr. Ritchie, dealing with the issues of, we've been trying to coordinate energy-saving projects in this building. We'll be changing out certain lights, certain switches. The police station, changing some of the garage doors to insulated doors, some of the heating controls. In the schools, we're changing lights and heating units, changing them to be more energy efficient. East Milton Fire Station, furnace control, some of the HVAC issues over at the Council on Aging, and changing out some streetlights down in the Central Ave, Milton Village area, where we're looking to take the current teardrop light that's down there, take out the incandescent light that's in it and put in an LED light. We ordered a LED sample that will retrofit that particular light. We'll put one in and then make another announcement like this, put it on the selectmen's thing, and, you know, try to get some feedback to what people think of that particular light.
So that's a test to see how it might work for other lights in town?
Yep,
Okay,
we've got
cool.
36 of those lights, and we pay the electric bill. When you start looking at how much we can save, it's actually considerable, and what we've saved pays for enlarging the list of projects. Did the Traffic Commission, working on an all hazards plan as required by FEMA and MEMA, which is federal and state, in order to be eligible for hazard funds. Doing that in conjunction with the police department, the fire department, DPW, and it's being coordinated for us by MAPC,
That was the
Metropolitan
meeting that
Area
we had.
Planning Council.
Yeah.
They'll do the individual writing. They'll do the mapping. We have to fill in how and where we find the projects, where they need to be. It's the same plan that I wrote when I worked at MAPC 6 years ago, so it's updating that particular plan. I've actually been working on updating the town's zoning map with Alan Bishop. He's the new DPW GIS specialist. The last time the town zoning map was updated was 2002. So we're putting in some streets, we're putting in the overlay districts. We'll put it onto the GIS and make it a little more user-friendly. We'll get it so that we can put it to the web and it's not going to take 10 minutes to upload. And then working on home issues. Home issues are, the federal program funded by HUD. We do that in collaboration with City of Quincy, Town of Braintree, Town of Weymouth, and Town of Holbrook. And they're potentially looking to expand the program to take in some of our neighboring communities, Canton, Norwood, Randolph, potentially going south down to Hull. Is it?
Good update, thank you.
And your paperwork for your different projects. And I actually have one for your agenda on the next, which would be the 27th, which would be an A&R for 66 Spruce,
66 Spruce, okay, great. Spruce.
Mr. Jackson.
Related to the wind turbine, I understand that there is proposed legislation that, would disallow a turbine within a certain number of feet of the Quarry Hills, right?
Would that be Representative Marina?
Well, that's what I'm
Marina.
wondering. Is the paper sounded like the city of Quincy was behind that, or is it just is it a representative who's doing it as a favor? Is the city?
We have not heard that it's coming from the city.
So it's legislation at the state level, but not sponsored by the city of Quincy as a
If
whole?
it's coming from the city, I have not heard that part of it.
Okay,
Okay.
good to know. You also have in your packages the Citizen Planner Training Collaborative, various workshops that are useful for planning board members to go to. Do we have is there a fee on this?
I believe it's like $30.
$30. Do we have that in our budget, or we do have that in our budget? And I am, just so you all know, I'm going to the Southern New England APA conference next week, not out of the planning board budget, sadly. Yes, I am. I'll be there for both days. I'll be there both days. Are you planning on going?
I'm trying to.
Okay. We can coordinate which ones we go to. So there's a number of seminars there that will be useful for the planning board. So I'll bring back whatever information I can collect.
Very, very.
So,
The Citizen Planner Training Collaborative used to have a one-day session at Holy Cross, and they're saving money.
No, they do it in March.
Okay, that's
That's
all right.
coming.
So this is just the fall lead-up to the March extravaganza.
They actually do this in the spring, too. They'll do one in the winter, they'll do another one they do one in the fall, they do one in the winter, they do one in the spring. And they have the bigger session, it's usually the second weekend of March.
I
at
went to
Holy
it a few
Cross.
years ago. Yeah, it was very useful.
First weekend in March is the Mass Association of Conservation Commissioners. The second one is Citizen Training Planning Collaborative.
Yeah. Yeah, the all-day one can be very good. I've been to one or two of the evening ones. I know definitely one. But they can be very useful. Even if you've been to an earlier one, just usually it has an update on current legislation or current practice. That can be very helpful.
Some of these are good, that they're at Old Colony Planning down in Brockton. Others they sound good, you want to go, and then you find out it's in Pittsfield.
It's a bit more of a drive, yeah.
Then there's the ones that really sound good that Diane likes to go to that are on
Nantucket.
Nantucket.
Have you actually gotten permission to go to one of those? So if you guys have the opportunity, I know I'll be looking at the schedule and seeing how it fits to go to them. They can be very useful, and also networking with other planners and planning commissioners helps. So we have 3 minutes.
I dragged it as long as I could.
Yeah, so did I. I could talk a little bit more about the CPTC, but some of the stuff at the SNEPA, SNEAPA, are very useful as far as the amount of technology that people are using these days, far beyond GIS to do planning. One of the things just to bring to your attention, though, is when we, at the end of our meeting, discuss the potential zoning articles for the annual town meeting, I want to remind you that one of them, the more complex one that we had been looking at, is the assisted living one. So just keep that in the back of your head as we look at going and doing those discussions, because I don't want to lose track of that as a possibility. The other things that you'll note that are in your packet are 2 drawings that came through for the discussion that we're going to be having in 2 minutes. A timeline to the special town meeting, should we choose to take anything to the special town meeting. And then for 95 Elliott, we have notes on the landscaping, and we have notes on the off-street parking overview for that. And I believe there was a drawing that was sent out by email, a site plan that was sent out by email. They'll be bringing that in with them? It's not.
He's going to bring a whole package.
Okay, he'll bring it with him on that one. Okay, that's good, because printed out in 8.5 by 11, it was a little bit tight.
He's
so.
going to bring you 11 by 17.
Perfect.
Everybody's going to get a packet.
Excellent. So,
What is the date of the special town meeting?
the special town meeting, I went to the selectmen's meeting last week, and the selectmen voted to make the date of the special town meeting January 30th with an extension over to January 31st if it needed to be 2 days. So that has been confirmed, and that's why I'm actually able to give you a definitive timeline to get to there. So we can go over that as we talk about 597 Randolph Avenue, which is the one that would affect our going to the special town meeting, and whether or not we choose to do that. All right, it is 6:59, so I think if our proponents come forward, by the time they've set up and arranged themselves, it should be 7 o'clock and we'll be bang on time. Ah, there we go.
Hello?
Bill, I have one. I have one.
Here's the camera.
This is the camera.
And make sure you
Line
line up.
Connolly, applicant, 131 Elliott Street, Warren Daniel.
welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
So I believe you have some drawings and some more information for us
We do.
from our last meeting. Excellent.
Is that a good angle?
The audience see it? No? Just a speck.
It's not up there yet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, if the
It'll
people...
come on the screen.
There we go, thank you.
Okay.
So,
Good.
all right.
Nice trip.
Next try. Okay. So, let me just grab, excuse me, I brought some notes too.
Tower's gone.
Still there. Yeah, it's more in line.
Yeah.
So this is very exciting. I passed on to the board by sending them to Bill and Diane, the sketches that you'd sent me during the week, so that they'd know that they were getting a preview, but it's fantastic to see these in color.
Good. You can pass that around. These are just notes that we made to go through
One
the
page.
key points, what we feel are the key points in this design development.
Okay?
Yeah, maybe I'll just stand up. Then nobody can see it here. I'll stand behind you.
You might have to just like hold this. I don't know if Mike
Okay.
can pick it up. But
Okay. One of the changes that we've made over the last, I think, couple of times we've met and presented is adding these balconies on the bays. It's really a combination of in the bays and on these lawn facades, the trackside and Elliott Street between the bays, which is a device for scaling that elevation down, that facade, and breaking it up with a horizontal offset. There's a number of different conditions we have as you go around the building that we are looking at where to put balconies, I should say, within the bay in these cases, and where to put it outside the bay in these cases where they span between, having to do with the treatment of the facade there, and the point in the building where it is with this commercial on the base. So we're open to ideas still, but we've given it our best shot. The bays at the ground plane have brick bases that conform to the lines of the bay above, replacing the cantilever that we'd had there before with brackets. That's point number 2. 3, I'll just read through these and then we can talk about them if you want. The tower at the corner of Elliott and Central will feature a 3-story oriel window, with its top story being a dormer in the mansard roof. The oriel window will contain 3 mulled double-hung windows. So that's, of course, right here. And we're developing that as a, this is, I think, worth talking about a little bit, a feature of what we've been calling the tower all along. It's kind of moved in a number of different ways. But what we're thinking we'd like to do is to make it prominent by virtue of this slightly projected, maybe a foot projected from the face here, and then resolving in a dormer up there, which is the only case really in the building something like that happens, but it really is in scale and fitting in with other elements such as the dormers. It's really like a wide dormer, balcony dormer size up here, and then coming down, so it's a triple unit there. It's a different reading than we've had before. You know, we could talk about that in more detail. Windows will be 2/2 double hung mulled units. Mulled just means combined side by side with a mullion post in between. They're typically, the windows are 3 feet wide by 5'6" high. The brick detail will have a panelized look, a panelized detail, which we didn't have before. We're really developing how to do that, but basically creating the look of pilasters with slightly recessed panels to give it more in and out, more three-dimensional quality. The recess will be in the order of probably 3 inches, 4 inches, something like that. The trackside setback, number 6, to feature a 6-foot metal baluster fence and trellises below the balconies with landscaping. It's kind of suggested here, it's a little hard to see, but this is the 6-foot fence, which would be along the property line, as close to the property line as we can get it. And this, again, is a 10-foot setback to the building. The bays, which project 4 feet from the building, come down so that they have a 6-foot setback. And we're thinking of, not the bays, but the balconies, underneath the balconies, which are really obscured here. We're thinking of having trellises and growing vines on there, and having a sort of foreground planting to soften the ground, the base there. Landscaping, we brought along the original landscaping plan, so I'm saying as a starting point, we're working with the original design, featuring specimen trees, shrubs, retaining walls, stairs, fencing, etc. The pergola structure at the Elliott Street entrance still applies, and we anticipate and realize that as the exterior is developing, the landscape has to develop to conform to it, particularly, for instance, along this trackside, as we talked about. Garage openings, wrought iron grills to blend with the fencing, open grill sectional roll-up doors at the entrances, the drive entrances for the cars. And the last point is dormers in the mansard roof will be generally of 2 sizes with low-pitch gable roofs. The larger ones will be approximately 12 feet wide and contain a 9-foot triple glass door unit onto the balconies. So that would be either an atrium door or in other words, a swinging door or a sliding door, probably swinging door, swinging center door. The smaller ones house 2 or contain 2 double hung windows, and they're generally in bedrooms. So the dormers themselves would be about 8 feet wide, the windows being about 6 feet combined. So that's the long and short of it.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask if you can provide Bill with PDF copies of
Sure.
these so that not only can the board have them, but also I'm
Right.
sure members of the press would like to be able to
Right.
publish them.
It came off
so.
the board about 5 o'clock tonight.
I figured that might be the case. So,
But we can do that.
that'd be
Get
great.
To you
Yeah.
tomorrow or something.
okay, perfect. Any questions? No questions? No details?
It's an improvement.
It's definitely coming along. I would like to commend you both on your work on this. It is definitely progressing in absolutely the right direction. So, now I believe, Steve, that you mentioned that you had met with Alex to discuss zoning. Was it a couple of weeks ago?
Right.
Okay, so Alex, do you have anything that?
Well, we were
Report on
discussing
that?
the step back on the trackside
Okay.
and the treatment at the base. And I think that obviously we've got to, it's not totally seeable what you're going to do, but the way you describe it seems to be make a more interesting ground level. And the fence, I think, is probably right, and it's required, as I understand it,
Yeah.
by the
T.
Yep. Didn't you at one point? Did you have 6/1s at one point, and you've now gone to 2/2s?
Yes, last maybe a couple of times we met
What
schemes.
what made
the
you?
thinking.
What made you? I'm not sure that 6/1 may not be a nicer.
I think it had to do with, not I think, but it had to do with trying to accentuate the verticality a little more of the windows, which is a reading of, it's a little more historically accurate, I think, with the style that you'd have here. But, we're open to ideas on that. I could see 2/1 being another option. But just to make it a little more vertically oriented rather than a more Victorian reading of a 6/1, I think.
6/1, I've got the drawing in front of me from a couple of meetings ago, and the 6/1 does tend to look a little bit busier than the 2/2.
Yeah. Hard to say if busy is what we want or not what we
Right.
want, but yeah, it's a somewhat different reading.
Any questions on the vines on the trellis that are proposed, or any other landscaping or detail questions?
They have a type of yew called a rependens yew that grows outside of sunlight.
It's a great.
Do they have a
rependent vine?
Do they have a rependens vine that will do the same thing?
Gonna have to find something that
Uh,
knows the shade.
Ivy.
Mhm.
There's your nice standard one.
Yeah.
So although ivy can tend to take over completely, but
Yeah, something that
It's
can be
classic.
maintained is
Yeah.
going to be critical.
absolutely.
And something flowering would be nice.
Yeah. Anything else? If not, we should start talking about next steps.
Okay.
So for the next meeting, now would you be able to come in to our next meeting in October? I suppose it depends on what we ask you, isn't it? Landscaping, we do need to hammer
Yeah.
down the landscaping now. I think that's our next big item to
Traffic.
discuss. And traffic's the other one. Thank you for that reminder. So,
I spoke with the traffic consultant,
okay,
and I'll touch base with him again this week, and I'll let you know if he'll be ready for the 27th of September.
okay. That'd be great if we could move to the 27th for both of those issues. So I think we're getting to the point where it seems that we are, judging by the lack of questions, we seem to be relatively happy with the design of the building. And, but I think we need to hammer down the landscape. And then, of course, these are obviously renderings. We're going to need to move into the actual drawings fairly soon. The whole point, as you know, but just to clarify for anybody else, was to hammer down these ideas in concept form.
Right.
And then get to the nitty-gritty of the details, the materials, the precise, colors as well. So let's get the landscaping and the traffic dealt with, and then we can move into that level of detail, assuming that everybody is satisfied with where we are at that point. So, yes, it is a public hearing, so.
Why don't you come up and use the microphone?
And then, yeah, Pete, don't let me forget.
Margaret Donovan, 41 Central Avenue, and I like the design of the building because it no longer looks like the Stetson shoe manufacturing place. The colors.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Well,
You don't want to hear.
Okay.
the colors, is this the plan for the colors?
It's a plan, it's our version of it, but this is a process that involves getting samples and actually getting a lot
So that,
more detailed.
that
But, yeah,
dark red on the bottom floor is brick,
brick.
and then you've got this pink, orange, whatever, that hardy plank.
Mm.
That was done to give it some color for this meeting.
So this is not carved in stone then?
No.
We haven't even begun to
No,
discuss color
It
yet,
could
yes.
be, we're trying for kind of a taupe. I think it's a little redder than that. But.
Is it not possible to at least bring the brick up to the entrance from Elliott Street, coming down and looking at that building?
You want the whole tower, just to clarify, you want the whole tower in brick, the one at the
Yes.
top? Not just the base?
No.
We had discussed having again, to remind people, we discussed limiting the brick to the commercial areas and then having the residential areas of the building be in hardy plank to give a visual cue to that. So that would change that visual cue, but you would prefer to see the entire tower in brick?
I think it looks more, for lack of a pun.
Important.
Well, yes, important, but also, I think this looks cheap, inexpensive. I don't think it looks like the caliber of the building at 36 Central Avenue. And I know there was comment made at a previous meeting that you didn't want a copycat of 36 Central Avenue, but I call attention to how stately those Baker Square condominiums look. And they have been in existence for some of them up to 100 years. To me, this just looks inexpensive. I don't think it looks stately enough for that particular site, especially because you're trying to build up that site and make it a showpiece for the Milton Central Avenue Business District. And I particularly think that the brick on the ground floor and then the hardy plank just shouts at you that it looks as though you ran out of brick and didn't know what to put up there afterwards, and so you put this cheap stuff. Now, I understand that hardy plank is supposed to be very durable, very solid, but John Q. Public doesn't know that, and he's going to look at that and say, I really think that something has got to be done about the outside appearance.
How did you render this? Is this hand rendering or?
I beg
is
your
it-
pardon?
No, I'm not, I'm sorry, Margaret, that was a question to you.
The renderer is right here, Peter Whitman,
Thank you very nice,
An old
very
colleague.
much, very nice job.
or a long-term colleague, I should say, not old. And it was done with colored pencil by
Okay.
hand and blended in, obviously, to the photograph. Is that an accurate statement?
Watercolor, oh, very, very nice.
I lied already.
I'm extremely impressed.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, if it's watercolor, you couldn't easily change that.
Obviously, all you need is a pot of water and some
No,
paint.
but then you'd, what I would have wanted to see is the drawings side by side, and you can't do that if you change the original drawing. You'd have to redo the entire drawing. You could do it in Photoshop. To take the tower and to turn the tower brick, you could do that in Photoshop. And then we could see, I think that's one of those things that's a little bit easier to see visually
Yeah.
rather than just trying to imagine it. The other thing, and I mentioned it to Steve late, these two views are fantastic, but I think another view that people might be interested to see is as you're coming down the other side, the residential portion of
Right,
Elliott,
Elliott,
looking towards and looking where that landscaping and that public green area is going to be, would be something that would be
Yeah.
fairly key to people.
That, I think, I agree with you, that is
Yeah.
very important. I think it's not gonna show as much context as we're trying to do with these.
No, but I think people are going to
Yeah.
want to see what that side of the building,
Part may answer Margaret's comment about the
Yeah.
brick on the bottom.
yeah.
Because you have your main door to the residences, you've got your small courtyard there.
Yeah,
Those two pieces and how they meld with the commercial
right.
may answer the piece that is missing on that side.
Yeah.
Right.
I have another question. I don't think I've heard any mention about the price range of these condominiums. Have you looked into that, made a decision on that yet?
I think 36 Central Avenue would be a good barometer.
So you'd be looking at being competitive with those.
Right.
Okay.
So you're talking about some of them being 1,500 square feet or more?
No, they're
No, they're
about
less than
1250.
So you're talking
The two
about,
bedrooms.
you're talking about the 379,000 price range as opposed to the 580?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. I mean, I shouldn't answer that, but in general, around here now, for this type of project, it's in the ballpark of 300 a square foot is what they're selling for.
You're going to have a problem with the,
Is that right?
330.
330? Yeah.
330, you're going to have a problem with the balconies overlooking the trolley and that screeching noise as they go through?
They can go inside, Margaret.
They go-
Well,
I
they can
get-
throw water balloons on the trolley.
All right, that's it.
Margaret, any other questions?
No, that's it for
Okay,
today.
great. Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to this project? Any other questions?
Just one thing, it does seem to me that it would be nice to get an architect's feeling as to bricking the tower, whether or not, apart from, you know, just
Right.
A second
just
opinion is what you're looking for.
a second
yes.
opinion, because I mean, we can certainly, we know, people know what they like, but it does seem to me that it's good to have a little direction.
Well, I remember when we were all working on 2 Adams Street that John Zigowitz was the one who came up with the final
He did.
material for the tower. So I'd certainly extended it.
I think that we should involve him sooner rather than later.
And there are several other architects in Milton that I think it would be nice to invite them to see if they'd like to comment on it and comment on the idea of breaking up the tower
Yeah.
or other
I mean, I think
material changes.
Just to reiterate,
Not to, no, I'm not going to have them redesign it, just,
Yeah.
you know.
No, just a
It'd be
comment.
cruel and
yeah,
unusual
my
punishment for you.
comment for what it's
Yeah.
worth, and I think I've said it, is I feel that if that were done, it would pull apart that piece. It would kind of strain to feel tied into the rest of the building because it's so different than the rest.
Right.
And, you know, the weight of it visually, whereas I think what we're trying to do more is blend but still be different, be a highlight element, but really horizontally blend more around, again, to be kind of part of the neighborhood and the scale there on Elliott Street.
Well, I think the view from the other side of the Elliott Street would help a great deal. And
Right.
of course, that gives us a chance to see your work again, so. Pete, did you have a question? I know you've been quite patient.
Will we have a review? Several months ago, Alex took the lead in doing a review of the zoning and elements that may or may not meet the zoning. Will we be having a point-by-point
Yes,
review
we will.
of revised design and how
Right.
it addresses those zoning?
Right, because it's, you know, morphing subtly all along the way, so we're gonna obviously have to do that. Similar to what we did, as you say, 2 or 3, maybe 3 months ago. Trying to go point by point in the zoning and talking about each of those elements.
The second comment I have is Emily made a comment and others that, that people are satisfied and liked it. I would like to say that I think the massing is not right at all for this site. So, I still have concerns over the basic building design that I would hope to have an opportunity for discussion, but I don't know if it's heading that way or not. But I'm not one of those who feels that this is a great
This is a
thing.
good time to bring that forward, because as they're reviewing this and we're settling on it, I didn't hear any questions, so I assumed that there was no dissension, but please bring that forward now.
Well,
That's what we need to know.
I think there are lots of issues relative to the analysis of how the building does or does not meet the zoning. So I think we need a discussion of those to see whether this massing addresses the zoning issues. The last several meetings, it seems that I'm one who has been speaking, being dissatisfied, while others say nothing or seem to like what's going on. So rather than appear to be obstructionist or something, what I tried to do is to articulate very specifically elements of context and elements of the design that I think are important for a successful redevelopment of this property. So I've jotted down some thoughts. This doesn't meet it, but I'll put them out there anyway.
Okay.
I think we've talked a good bit about context and how this fits into both the residential side on Elliott Street and the commercial district. I think in order to blend with the residential character and the scale of Elliott Street, I think that the building should be set back the same distance as a minimum, but the same distance as the front yard setbacks of those residences on Elliott Street. If we carry that line through, then coming through the building lines up and reflects the residential character of that area. I think additionally related to the residential character, I think the building height on that Elliott Street edge, once it's set back, should be no more than 2 stories above grade. So we've got the ground floor, which is really the below grade floor, and then we go 4 up above that in parts of the building. But I think it should be no more than 2 stories, again, on that Elliott Street edge to reflect the scale of the residential character on Elliott Street. And then after the 2 stories, I think, maybe if there's the whole issue of upper story setback, I think if after the 2 stories it's set back 12 to 16 feet and then went up again, then that allows a great opportunity for balconies or something there on that the sunny south side of the building. Can be some nice outdoor spaces, but again, reflecting the residential character of the neighborhood. Related to the commercial character of the business district, I think I was delighted to hear last time you came in that you were proposing having a 20-foot sidewalk on that side. I don't think we need a 20-foot sidewalk, but I think a 20-foot setback is a good key for that. And I was looking out there and stuff. I think a 12-foot sidewalk would be terrific, and then taking that other 8 feet for some landscaping,
Right.
so that the building setback being 20 feet, I think is terrific. I think that's
Yeah.
a big step forward.
And that's really shown and suggested in the rendering
Yes.
here too, you can see.
Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
much better. However, in terms of the upper story setback again, I think consistent with what the Urban Land Institute indicated and the other commercial development around there, I think the scale on Central Avenue should be the ground floor plus no more than 2, either 1 or 2. 1 would be consistent with the other buildings, but I could see going 2. And then again, this setback of 12 to 16 feet, you get your upper story setback that's required by the zoning, and that creates an opportunity for balconies or decks and things like that, again, which can enhance those residential units. That kind of relates to context and scale. I think that the redevelopment plan should have a significant outdoor gathering space or a plaza, which I've said before, kind of replacing the gathering function that always used to happen at the Henrys with their plaza, their terrace, the wall that people would sit on and things like that. I think the idea of some outdoor gathering area is something that's sorely missing at Central Avenue, and people have tried to deal with it a little bit by putting a bench out on the sidewalk, and next to the senior care, they've got that tiny little space and they put an umbrella out there. But I really think that the business district should have some kind of gathering area. Now, maybe it's not right on the corner like I was pushing before. I think the location and the design of the feature can be discussed, but I think it's important that it's a public gathering area and not seen as a private space for the residents. Personally, and again, I don't know how the board feels and things, and I've said this before, I'd like to see more of the parking inside the building rather than a surface lot on Elliott Street. However, if the parking is set back the same way that I talked about setting back the building to reflect the line of the residential buildings, if the parking is likewise set back and that there's some significant landscaping between the street and the parking, I think that I think that goes a long way to addressing the concerns about all that surface parking. And again, it'll also depend on what the traffic studies say about the impact on Elliott Street of all this traffic coming in and out of that driveway. So there's just work to do there. Lastly, I think it's important that the commercial uses occupy the ground floor along the entire frontage of Central Avenue, except for the garage driveway. And again, that was pointed out in the zoning analysis as a requirement of that. So I think commercial uses on that entire, except for the driveway, and that they should occupy the first floor on Elliott Street. I know you're talking about 2 levels of commercial, some down and some up. And I think they should occupy the Elliott Street edge up to where the business district ends on the other side of the street, so it reflects the edge of the business district. So I think those things create a context both for the residential part of the building and the commercial part of the building. Thank you.
Thanks.
First of all, any questions from you guys on anything Pete said as far as making sure you're clear on what his requests were? And they're going to throw it open to the board for discussion. So make sure you've got everything
Yeah, no,
down.
I think I understand.
Okay, great.
You can have that if you want.
Well,
Discuss them.
he does want to change the building, and structurally, I expect that it's significant. I'm not. We'll take a look at when you bring in your Elliott Street, your rendering, and we'll take a look at that. And the elevations will be helpful. But I do understand that what you're basically calling for is a redesign. And because there's no way you can structurally accomplish that with what you've got here.
There's issues of structure and there's issues of unit layout.
Yeah,
The
I
way
mean,
this is set up. Yeah,
both
exactly.
those things. And so I'm not as troubled as Pete is. I think that the massing, in my eye, is not unacceptable. But I want to, we're going to get detailed elevations, and it's going to be useful to have them because we'll know just how it's going to appear. And in that line, is Hardy Plank pre-colored?
You can get it both pre-colored and post-colored, painted.
But will they will they color it any way you want, or do they have specific
They have
colors?
a
If
lot-
they have,
Specific colors.
if they have a specific color chart, why don't you get one?
Okay, I have one.
Okay,
There's about 25 colors.
That's
maybe.
fine.
Yeah.
Bring them in and show them to us.
You can also, and I'm not sure, we haven't really discussed it, but you can also, of course, paint it or make any color you want
it would be
by painting it.
best not to paint it if
Mhm,
possible.
mhm. It holds paint a lot
Just a
more than
question
wood
for
wood
Warren.
does.
Is the hardy plank, is the finish like vinyl siding, it's all the way through? It's not just a surface finish?
Right, correct.
So
It's a
this
cement
color
fiberboard.
is all the way through?
Yeah,
But, because you could always paint the surface?
yeah, exactly, yeah. Mhm.
Ed, do you have any questions?
Regarding Pete's remarks, I think it's time for John Z.
I'm going to invite him and a few other architects that have appeared in front of the board before.
Yep.
So, a couple of things on Pete's. Certainly, as you're presenting the landscape plan to us, hopefully in 2 weeks' time, I would like you to pay particular attention to the things that he brought up about the setbacks, both on the residential side on Elliott Street, showing us either how they can line up or how they can't, and if they can't, what's your justification. The public gathering area has always been an issue, and I think this landscape plan is a perfect time for us to discuss that and hammer out its location and size and how, not only how it will be accessed, but how the public will understand that they can access it and not think, oh, that's not for me, that must be private. So that's got to be clear in the design. I also very much like the idea, your switch to creating that 20-foot setback with part of that, the 12 feet being the accidents there. Too many people jumping the lights. So, what else? What have we not discussed that needs to be discussed? Ed?
It just seems to me that it's such a spectacular site. It's a landmark area in the town of Milton, that we almost need to have piece of expertise on special planning for this, not just what we are accustomed to, almost special planning, because it is so, it has so many hardships, but also it is spectacular. So how do we balance that off in keeping with the residential concept, which I think should be broadened, but that's not for me to say.
How would you broaden that? I mean, this is the time to bring that up
I know,
now.
but it just seems to me, it is so spectacular that single family units, it's worthy of much more than that. That's what I'm trying to say. And, maybe as I say, some special planning advice, assistance might help. Maybe it's been done before elsewhere.
May I address, I want you to know that we are very, very concerned as to what the final look on this property is going to be.
Okay.
We are very concerned about that. And I think Anthony can tell you that from day one, we have been harping on, we want space, we want this to look really nice. Father and I and Mr. Irwin have gone to his various construction homes, etc., to see what kind of work he did before we picked him. We want this place to really look nice because it is a spectacular place. But we have to sell it. We can't just maintain it. You know, it can't be done. Financially, it can't be done. So that's why I want you people to know we are really interested in what it looks like. And I've thought a lot about it, just personally now I'm speaking. Single-family homes would just take up that whole area. We have asked him, we would like green, green, green all the way around that corner. We want it to still really look nice. And that's our goal, and I think that's the goal of the planning board too, and all your discussions of various projects. I think you are concerned about what the heck is the thing gonna look like when it's done.
You're very concerned about aesthetics,
Yeah,
yes.
and we are too, and I want you to know that. And we picked Anthony here because of that. We thought he would make it really look nice, and his concept that he has given to us, and I'm not an engineer, I'm not a builder, but it looks like he has a lot of frontage in the front to make it look green. And Mr. Jackson's concerned, and I know Mr. Whiteside says he has many, but one I'm sure is the building that's on it, that Dr. Dolan, who was a friend of mine, did so many changes to that inside of that building and put all new windows in and new doors, and it's really different than what it was when it was built. He used that as an office, and if you're gonna turn it into many offices, rooms, that you have to take down walls and partitions and et cetera, and it's quite different. And one of the prospective buyers was a funeral director, and thought in terms of using that house expanding it, but using the house as his house there with the funeral home. And he had 2 engineers come in, and they advised him there's no way that you can keep this, and so we lost that perspective by him.
Other concerns that the board would like to bring forward?
Well, I guess just conceptually, you have a parcel of land with a house on it, and it's for sale. And the owner decides that they can't get enough money for the lot without it being rezoned. Would not this apply to any owner who owns a lot in town, who decides that they don't feel that they can sell their lot for what they want, and that they could get more money if it were rezoned? And I understand it's owned by the church, but the church is a landowner and obviously has financial needs, but the town doesn't necessarily have to support those financial needs. And in fact, with Temple Shalom, they said, we need the CVS to be able to survive, and the town meeting voted that proposal down. So I would suggest that I understand that all organizations need money, and it would be nice to realize as much money as possible on the sale of an asset. However, I just question whether or not it's appropriate that just because you want to maximize your return, that you go and you ask the town to rezone your particular piece of land. So that's just that.
I want to play devil's advocate,
Okay,
though,
go ahead.
because I can see that perspective. I can see that you come in and say exactly that. Let me turn it around slightly and say that several parcels of land that make one contiguous piece on an important corner in town has come up. And it's come up for a potential change in land use. And the question that I have is, what is the most appropriate land use for that piece of parcel? Or that particular important corner? Is the most appropriate land use single-family homes? If so, it's already zoned that way. Is the most appropriate land use some sort of multifamily condominium development? That's the question that's currently in front of it. Should it be commercial simply because there's commercial across the street? Should it be mixed use? What opportunity do we have to consider this at the moment? And what do we think, in the absence of a master plan, is the best use for this parcel?
I would suggest that the master plan we have has put this down as residential C zoning.
Okay.
And you say that it has come into play. Admittedly, it's got a house on it.
Yep.
And it's for sale. And
Yes.
Someone could presumably move into the house and keep it as it is. That's one potential. You say that the land use is necessarily going to change. It isn't
So I
necessarily
say
going
it's
to change.
possible, it is
It-
possible to change.
But wouldn't that be true in anyone's house where a big estate is like the people down on Canton Avenue who are subdividing their
Absolutely.
property? Does that say, oh, they're subdividing, that means that we should consider new zoning for the property?
Well, if the owner, well, actually, that's a really good question, because we have had that come up in discussions before, and we have considered whether or not to revise our cluster bylaw to allow people to take advantage of that. But you're absolutely right. Those properties could come in front of us, not just for a change in type of residential development, but they could come in front of us and change for any type of development. And we would have to consider that.
Anyone can request change zoning.
Absolutely.
However, zoning is meant to ensure some consistency.
That's also
This
true.
Utterly
particular
controlled.
site is zoned Residence C, and I have not yet been shown why it's impossible to work out an attractive development with 4 or 5 houses that could not sell. The idea that somehow single-family houses are no longer sellable in Milton I don't think it's true. But if it can be shown to me that somehow you can't you can't do anything with residency zoning. You can't make anything that's sellable, and the property will languish, undeveloped, forever if you don't change the zone. Fine.
I see Bernie making some motions. I think Bill and Pete may both have indicated a willingness to speak. Bernie, do you have any comments?
No, I'm just thinking, I'm thinking of people that could benefit by living in a place like this. I'm thinking that a lot of people in the town feel like we might be opening up the door to let other people in. But, you know, we're all compassionate people. We should really try to provide housing to people. But yet, are we going to really change the town? And if we do change it, is it that bad?
But this isn't proposed as any kind of subsidized or income-restricted housing. This is just market rate housing.
But even at market rate housing, it provides more condos in a different area of town than condos have been historically associated with. So it does open up different types of housing. And that's certainly something that we were concerned with initially. We have a 2-family contiguous with the property. Is that correct, Bill? You were looking it up
Yeah.
today? Okay.
The yellow house on Randolph is a 2-family. All
So-
the other houses all the way around the property are all single-family.
Okay, but there is one contiguous 2-family. It's been a while since I reviewed that portion of the zoning bylaw, but I believe new 2-families can come in if they're contiguous. So-
Isn't there a landscape group that is between that 2-family and this parcel?
Hunt.
Richie Hunt.
He owns the yellow house and the barn. The barn
Is that yellow house a 2-family?
Yes.
I did the house next to that, a home inspection probably about 2 or 3 years ago. That's a 2-family,
That's a 2-family.
right next to the town yard.
DPW.
Yeah, but that's not contiguous to this parcel. It's the other one that's contiguous to the parcel. So
And this side,
potentially,
the Foreys own
yeah.
the other side.
So
This property
potentially,
is 4 lots, and the 4 lots, of the 4 lots, the house is a 2-family house.
but is that lot actually contiguous with these lots, or is there a lot in between? That would make a difference, zoning-wise.
This is actually 4, he has 4 lots, the barn is on,
Oh, good for you.
Two
I
of
meant to
them.
do that today, and I didn't get a chance.
It lies between 2 lots on which a building, between two
There's this lot.
families. It has to be between two families.
Oh, between two
Between, yeah.
families. Okay, so I misremembered it. Thank you, Alex. All right, so then these are not eligible for development as 2 families. They would have, under the current zoning, they would have to be single-family residences. So,
Could I?
Yes,
I'd like to address, I don't want to get on the bad side of Mr. Whiteside, because
Always a bad mood.
I've watched many a planning board on television, and number one rule, do
There's never a good side, though,
on the
Doc.
bad side. So it's-
There's never a good side, though.
Oh, you're now on his bad side.
But I do not agree with your premise that you have, an example that you gave, that you have a owner of property who wants to use the word maximize his income. If we wanted to maximize our income, we're up in the $3 million range offered.
For CVS.
With a CVS, done by Mr. Kaufman, but not likely to happen.
Well, if the money's on the table, it would happen, right? And then what he does with it is his business.
No, it's
That's
not
not
shown
good.
for a CVS.
We're only the
Right.
seller, but we're really interested in having it turn out to be really nice.
Right.
And so that's why I'm letting the board know that how interested we are in having it look really nice, because it has looked nice. And we're not trying to maximize our income, we really aren't. And the single-family homes, if you can get a developer who's gonna build some single-family homes, and I don't, and there are a couple in town who have refurnished some single-family homes, but I don't want those type of homes there as a great corner that we have in Milton. And I want it to look really nice, and we've been promised, and with the help of the board, when we're asking your help, we want to have it nice. And I don't want to be on the bad side.
One consideration for looking at rezoning and doing some sort of multifamily is we could, I mean, this corner has been identified as an important corner, and the green space has been mentioned by people as being important to them. As part of that, rezoning and allowing for multifamily would allow us to protect or require public open space, which could then protect that corner as public open space. That is one possibility. If I can say this, having not actually discussed it fully with you as a requirement, because you've already indicated that you want to keep that space open. So I feel comfortable in saying that we
Right,
could
that's-
actually require that as part of the zoning.
That's where the plan basically came from. As far as single-family homes, beyond being difficult to sell in the street, not impossible because there's single-family homes on the street that sold. But we talked about traffic issues. How am I gonna get 6 more curb cuts on a corner that's already dangerous for single-family homes? I mean, so
You could
that
use a
being,
common driveway,
well, then it kind of turns into the same type of thing. Right.
except there are fewer houses.
Well,
Right, so now
no,
we're talking-
single-family homes could fit on this with a common driveway. They're a little bit more scattered, but
And
it's
tho-
still the same number of
And those
houses.
boxes are roughly the same size as a normal single-family home, and that's where we can, I don't want you to think that we just threw this on a piece of paper and came up with it. There was a challenge. Obviously, the single-family homes with all the curb cuts didn't work. I knew one thing for sure, that everybody wanted, not everybody, the people I spoke to about the site wanted residential. Single-family homes, I felt were difficult to sell there. Secondly, the curb cuts. So then it left me with, well, what else is there really for residential? So we started going down the townhouse condo type route. Then we heard, I heard that they wanted to maintain the corner green. So that's why you see the big chunk of green. I heard they didn't want cars in the back from, I met with some of the neighbors in the back, that they didn't want lights shining on their house. So, okay, so where does that leave me parking? In the middle, and the houses in the back. And that's kind of where the plan came from. It wasn't just, I didn't do it on my own, I didn't come up with it, it was input from everybody. Now granted, it may not look beautiful, but it's a start, and it's kind of the input that I got for the site.
But you said you want something to look beautiful, and what you brought to us is something that doesn't look beautiful.
Well, we want the finished product to look
Right.
beautiful.
And we've discussed the
But we're
fact
here
that-
to hope that you would help us in
So
that.
I made it quite clear several meetings ago that I would hope that a developer who wanted to enlist our support would come up with a conceptual plan that was beautiful to begin with, so that the board could say, we can actually create something beautiful. This particular plan has a row of cars that will be parked right on top of this green space, and you can say there's a little area of green there, but I think that no one is going to be fooled when it's up and running.
We have discussed the fact that the cars being visible from the street is not acceptable. I brought your comments back to them. We've also discussed the fact that the lineup in this plan of the houses is not acceptable. One difficulty standing in the way of them bringing a plan back to us that would be more appropriate for the site is the question of how many units versus how many buildings that you are willing to consider on the site. I'm not sure that's a question that can be answered tonight, but these 6 buildings are duplexes. So the question is, would we prefer fewer buildings with more units in them? And are we concerned about the number of units in the buildings? I.e., do we accept that 12 units on this site is acceptable, but the number of buildings the units are in is not acceptable? Or do we feel that 12 units is still too dense, even if they're contained within a fewer number of buildings? So the issue of density is something that they would need resolved prior to bringing a site plan into us. So I throw that out for your consideration.
You could have one building.
You could have one building.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can have 12.
Well, actually, Anthony and I started drawing out where else we put these buildings on the site, and 6 buildings is pretty much all you can get in there to look halfway decent and still have some green space in there. But how would you feel?
I think halfway decent is about how it would look.
Which is why I did not personally like 6 buildings on that site. But how would you feel about one building of 12 units?
How would I feel about 12 units?
That's an equally important question.
I want to know how this density was developed.
I believe Bill has some answers on that. You mentioned at a previous meeting that it was based on number of bedrooms.
No, I want to know how the density of 12 units
That's what I'm saying.
per acre
That's what I'm
was
saying.
developed.
It's
As a
not
planning
12 on
matter.
an acre, it's 12 on an acre and a half.
So it's 8 per
63,000.
acre?
8 per acre.
8 units an acre.
8 houses.
And I believe what you did, if I remember correctly, is you figured out how many houses could go on there, 8 single-family homes, multiplied it by the number of bedrooms, and then figured out how many 2-bedroom
Take
units.
63,000 divided by 7,500, you get 8.4.
Okay.
Take 8 houses, in that area, you're going to have 3-bedroom houses. 8 3-bedroom houses would be 24 bedrooms. The way they came up with it, 6 buildings, 2 units apiece is 12 units. 12 units of 2 bedrooms is 24 bedrooms. So it came out to be the same number of bedrooms.
And since parking has historically been based on number of bedrooms for condos,
What about children? If this is for firemen
They don't
and
drive.
policemen and people, young families seeking to,
Ask them, it's their
no,
idea.
what about children? I mean, if this is in fact meant to be for police officers and other people starting out who have families, isn't this a sort of a cop-out?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we can ask for no children. I don't think we can do that.
Well, you should provide for them.
well, 2 bedrooms would presumably provide for at least 1 child, possibly 2.
Right, and then when they have 2, they can move out, right?
Well, if these are considered to be starter homes, absolutely. They're condominiums, not single-family homes in this
Now
particular
now they're
proposal.
starter homes.
Starter
No,
condominiums.
no, no,
Bill.
no, no.
I'll make it starter
Starter
condominium.
homes is something I've never heard before with respect to this development.
I have just thrown it into the mix
All right,
now,
I don't,
Just for you.
I don't buy it.
Anything else?
One
Yes,
one building, parking,
building?
parking under,
Parking underneath?
parking underneath.
Okay, any other thoughts?
But you could step the building
You
in
could do.
conformity to the slope.
Yep,
Parking under, you wouldn't see any cars parked.
yep, absolutely, you could do that.
Step it up, step it down.
Would that look nice?
I think
Depends
so.
on the design of the building.
It wouldn't look like Milton.
You have had some interesting ideas.
He brings a great deal of value to the board with his interesting ideas. Thank you, Eddie. What else?
Well, this is the same size as the Hendry's development. We could bring that building over.
It is the
Different-
The
same
area is
lot
the same
area.
size.
The contours are slightly different, very slightly different.
I
So,
said we needed somebody who was an expert on this. We need some help.
okay.
That's where
I
the
have-
two
I've never
families
done
all
this.
came, I know, again,
Yeah.
it's not a perfect design, but that's where the two families came in, was to try and, so it didn't stick out, but I guess that's kind of where we're going now, because it is a prominent site, but my idea was to keep it just blending in with the houses in the area, that's why the footprints look similar to everything.
Yeah, and the fact, I understand from what you were saying that was what you were trying to do, but the fact that the houses are lined up
Right,
make them
right.
look very different
Yeah.
from the houses in the area. The other thing too is, as Alex pointed out, other landowners may want to follow this precedent. And so we would want to make sure that the type of building that was done is something that we would be willing to see in other parts of town if people look at this. Also, again, as we write the zoning, depending on how we define it, we have to make sure, as we consider how it would be possible to define the zoning, let me rephrase that. As we consider how it would be possible to define the zoning, and we see where else that definition might apply in town, we would have to make sure that that zoning would be, in fact, applicable and desirable in those other parts of town. So if we, for example, liked a single building with 12 units on this site, and this ended up applying to 5 other sites, would we agree that a single building with 12 units would equally be desirable in those parts of town that it might also apply to? Same thing with the duplex or the townhouse units that you've suggested. Are those applicable everywhere? So the definition is going to be key. Our view of the density is going to be key. I'd like to know what else the board is concerned about and what next steps you would like to take for our next meeting, what you would need to see to bring this forward. Where,
I brought
as I
some
said,
blank plans, I know you're going off of assessor's map, so you can have those to see the site empty.
with the contours as well, excellent.
Yeah, that might help out, some ideas.
Pardon the left hand.
That's all right.
I do see Alex's point that if we did something like this, what's to prevent somebody else in a C district from amassing a few parcels and say, let's rezone this similarly? You've done it here.
You could do contiguous ownership as of a certain date. I mean, that has been
Right, but
a way of
What
defining
is the
things.
reason for doing that? Why would you do it here and not do it for someone else?
It's a good question. We would have to
But
have
it's
a
because
coherent reason.
presumably it's because it's the church, but is that a good enough reason? You say it is.
No, I'm saying that we need to discuss that.
Well, isn't it, I mean, it is kind of a unique site. It's on a corner, it's at a lit intersection, it's a state road. I mean, what would prevent other people from doing it? Well, if they're as unique as this, probably nothing. They should have a shot at trying to come up with a better idea. But I mean, if you're just a regular lot in the middle, you're not on a corner, there's no lights, I mean, I think this definitely could be something better than 6 single-family homes.
Bill, you probably didn't get a chance today to look up what other sites in town might meet the same conditions. I know what your day was like because I spoke to you partway through it. So, but that would be something we'd need to do is, are there other corners on state roads that would have the same sort of profile as this one?
I didn't.
Yeah, no, I know you wouldn't have had a chance. I'm just saying that we would need to look into it, yeah, and see where else this might apply. I think the defining it as a corner would be one way of limiting.
Yeah, but then you
you're-
could just put another street in. You could, as part of your development, you put a stub street in, you're on a corner.
You could require that 2 out of the 4
I
streets.
understand
But
do that.
it's
But
not
there's- what's
answering
the
your.
reason for it to be
Exactly,
on
that's
the
what I was going to
corner?
say, is it's not answering your initial question, which is what is the reason for this particular zoning?
Well, but, no, I mean, but just if you limited it to being on a corner of a
Right.
One part of which was a state highway.
This is actually why I was looking at the PUD, including the commercial across the street, is that gave it slightly more of a reason. Residential development on existing residential uses, commercial development on existing commercial uses, and that's where my brain stuck and I had to go back to work. So I don't have the full answer for you on that.
Commercial across the street, in order to make it at all reasonable, you'd have to rezone part of the nearby residents' business as well, because it's not a big enough area to zone commercial.
Why?
Because it's small. It's a third of an acre total,
For all
narrow.
3 parcels? Are there
Very
3
narrow as
parcels
well.
there?
and it's very narrow.
It is very
And
narrow,
You have
agreed.
to take
Yep.
that house in back of it and make that business. I mean, it's, this is not a,
I didn't say it'd be easy.
Between now and next week.
I never bring you the easy stuff.
all right. In any event,
Right.
we're not.
It's
We're
complex.
not going to do commercial. We agree with.
There you go, you got agreement. What else? Anything? You want to think about it?
Question here.
Question.
Yeah,
Are there
sorry.
any other institutions in the town, nonprofits, religious, that might be interested in this corner?
You mean as far as buying it and using it? I don't know the answer to that. Were you approached by any nonprofits?
No,
There was a sign out there for 60 days. It was advertised.
Okay,
there was a sign, yeah, that the
I remember seeing the
Archdiocese
sign,
group
yeah.
put out there.
Yep.
We asked them 10 times to take it down, but we were not successful.
It's good advertising. You figure everybody going past there would have seen it up there. So, okay,
They
so
own the
there's,
property, they think they could do what they want.
They didn't know it was the real, I took it down. I admit it.
the realtor's coming after you now.
Good.
Yes.
Any merit in a site walk?
If you'd like to do a site walk, absolutely, why not?
Any merit, do you think, Doc?
You would like to site walk it? Yeah, sure.
That's
Eddie would
the-
like to site walk it. I think
That's
that's a
the other
fine
thing, when I
idea.
was talking about, I mean, if you look at the, again, back to my terrible plan. If you look, the parking that's facing the street is actually set in just slightly. And the reason for that, and again, using the stone from the house, my idea was to raise the grade
Mm-hmm.
on the whole corner so that you really couldn't see the parking.
You still don't get to put parking in.
No, I know, I'm just pointing out
Yeah.
the good things about
It
my
wa- it was a
plan.
good thought, but you still don't get to put it in front, so.
Well, you could raise the grade so you couldn't see anything. You just have a wall.
Significant grade. I don't think we
prison.
want walls. I think we want to be able to look through the properties, so. All right, so we can set up a site walk. Any determination, does the board feel comfortable making any determinations that would allow them to come back to us with a site plan? I mean, how do we feel? I think the key thing would be, first of all, how do we feel about 12 units on this parcel, well, collection of parcels? And then how do we feel about how many buildings those units are? Because I don't see, and I'm asking this because I don't see that they can come back to us with a site plan unless we've at least given them some guidance on that. Do we like 12 units? Do we think it's too much? Do we think it's too little? Would we like our, what is it at 131 Elliott, 30-something?
I don't buy the way this has been developed.
Okay.
That there are two-bedroom units that supposedly are for young families. I think that's
Well, it doesn't
ridiculous.
actually say family. It says
It did.
career.
It basically
Does not say
said
family.
families. It said families for town workers and their families.
It did not say
No,
families.
I think that it's silly to make the town worker, or permit the town worker to live in town, then have the family have to live somewhere else.
No. But, no, it says police officers, firefighters, educated nurses for first-time home buyers.
Right,
So,
first-time home buyers.
you know, you are assuming
But they're going
that
to
all
live
of these.
there. They're
Yes,
going to
but
live there.
You are assuming that, A, all of these people have children. I mean,
But
they
that's
don't
not
I'd
what's
like
on
them
the
to be
table right
able
now.
to have children.
maybe they don't want children.
Maybe they don't, and then they don't have to.
I don't think you legislate them to have children. The zoning requires.
You
the rest
basically
can't legislate them
that
not to have
with
Exactly.
with your two-bedroom apartment, you're discouraging children, and it isn't what you know, if you build your single-family houses,
Yes.
you can have families. And I think that's what the town is about, and you know, this is something else. You're talking about apartments on this particular corner. Condominiums,
home
whatever.
Ownership,
On the corner.
Yes.
And, you know, I don't,
but it might be elderly people who are
it
downsizing.
might be any number of different
Right.
people.
But what I'm saying is that 2 bedrooms does not necessarily preclude a couple from having a single child, which would be perfectly acceptable. It doesn't preclude an elderly couple downsizing or a single person downsizing, for that matter.
Doing another elderly housing development on this particular site.
I'm not suggesting that it be an elderly
Well,
housing.
or a 55 or over, which it basically is.
It could also be a single person buying a condo unit.
Could indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not,
I
I'm questioning
I think
the,
that if you increase the density here, 12 becomes the new normal. Or whatever becomes the new normal for units per acre. I think that it hasn't been shown to me that this number of units is appropriate for this site. And I don't buy the way that the units were put together. I don't buy it, and I don't approve it.
I think that's fair enough, but do you have a suggestion of a number of units?
The zoning establishes a number of units. It seems to me that a proponent has to show
Why?
a need for more units, and why and how. But just to say we don't like however many, I think there's 6 units allowed here. I mean, that's a lot of units on an acre and a quarter, an acre and a half.
Would you accept 6 units but not a single-family home, 6 units within a condominium development?
I think that we could, but I don't think that that would be of interest to the people who are.
Would it be an interest to you? If
It
you
wouldn't be of particular interest to me, but I could certainly, the density, if you didn't change the density, I wouldn't have issues about that.
So your key concern is the density of all of this. It's not the number of buildings necessarily, it's absolutely the density.
Well, the density, the type of housing, the traffic, the appearance.
Well, obviously, a reduction in density might affect the reduction
of density
traffic.
might make this particular proposal, it might make people say, why not just have single-family units? I mean, it could be townhouses, it could be what have you.
Anybody else? Because if not, I think we've given you some things to think about, I hope, as far as needing to address the idea.
No, I mean, I don't think that anything anyone said to me tonight was anything new that I didn't expect to be said. I just disagree that we're trying to make the big bucks here, because I think I've proven to you that we're not.
I think we can accept that.
Even though, still on the good side, I hope, even though Mr. Whiteside said that we were, a person trying to maximize their income. And I hope I've let you people know that we're interested in having this result to look very, very nice for the town of Milton. And that's a primary goal, and I was hoping that we would get some help to, and encouragement to keep that going to look as nice as it can. I don't think other people coming in think like that we're interested in having it look nice. I don't know how many, I watched the planning boards, I never hear anybody talking like that, never. Well, I'm talking like that, and Father Walsh is talking like that, and the people in the neighborhood are talking like that. And that's what we would like help in.
Why don't you come back to us on the 27th with a site plan that shows us your full proposal, taking into account the comments that you've heard here.
I don't
So-
feel like I have enough direction for that.
All right, so we'll go over it a little bit. So you've
Okay.
heard from Alex that he would prefer a reduction in the density, that you're happy with the number of units that could be accommodated on the site as a Residence C.
That's
Just-
the zone.
Yes, the zoning, the
Whether
current
I'm
zoning.
whether I'm happy about it or not, the zoning is the zoning.
So the
And,
zoning, so you would either come back with a proposal showing
Six
six units on
units.
the site, or you would have a justification for why it needed to be more for us to consider. So,
With no site plan.
well, we need a site plan. You would need to, we need to see what you're proposing. So you come in with a site plan that
Yep.
shows us what you're proposing.
With 6 units.
No. If what you're proposing is 6 units, you show us 6 units.
Yep.
And however you're planning on accommodating those 6 units. If you feel that you must have more than 6 units, and you can justify that, then you put whatever units you're requesting, hopefully less than 12, and come in with the justification.
I get that, so
Okay.
I'm gonna try and figure out how to justify
Well,
more amount of units.
Yeah,
Let's-
certainly no
let's be
more than
honest.
12.
But that being said, how do you want me to arrange them if you don't like them in a 2-family layout? How do you want me to arrange the units
Okay.
that I try and justify?
Condex, were they attached in some way,
So one structure? Is that what we're all,
connected by a fence?
You
There was a
could.
concept.
You don't necessarily have to, I mean, you've heard one voice for one structure.
this is why they have architects.
Yes, I would say at this point, you need to hire
This is
yourself
why they
an
have
architect.
no, I know, but I did come in with something, so.
Yeah, but,
tell-
okay, but, so you
tell me-
know that the six buildings is too many.
So
you
we
know
need to
that
shrink
is.
less buildings.
Yes, we talked last night, and I mentioned that we talked last night about 3 buildings, you could do 4 buildings. The point is, you need a designer who will help you come up with that. I would-
Six single families, I mean, would be
You could try 6
possible.
single families, but
I'm
you would
just
have to
a
show how that would be
spell
accommodated on the site. But they've already
About the
said they
curb
don't
cut,
I don't
want
know
to
spell
do
quest it, but.
single family
You
houses.
have a common
two
driveway,
Ts.
you
I know
have
where it
the
is.
same curb cut you're talking about here.
Would you buy a house, single-family home on that corner?
Would
I wouldn't let my daughter buy a single-family
Or
home.
my kids, I wouldn't let my
was
kids
thinking-
play in the
I
front
was
yard there.
thinking- I was thinking, actually,
That you would buy one.
Fixing up what's there now should be really about as nice a place to
Spectacular.
live as there exists in town.
Are you interested in buying it?
Oh, look, he just made you an offer, Alex.
Yeah, make an offer, Mr.
All
Whiteside.
right, let me go home and consider it. Put my other house on the market.
You'll have trouble selling it.
Yeah, hold on, guys.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that it'll be to their advantage to go to the annual town meeting and not to the special town meeting.
I have to say that given the timeline, I don't disagree at all. On the other hand, they have a particular timeline that they have to match. I do think it would be in your best interest to take this timeline to the Archdiocese and explain to them the difficulties with this timeline. I understand that that may not work, but I think it would be in your best interest to try, because this is a very tight
Well,
timeline
I
to do
already,
it.
I already know the answer. We have tried. We have tried.
I
You know,
just-
Dr. Shea, how difficult it is to get any zoning through a town meeting.
I do.
Any zoning
Yeah.
at
I
change
do.
at all. And so on a
Right.
short leash like
I
this, it's
do.
got to be a pretty compelling package to even think it's going to be successful.
You basically would have to come into to our next meeting on the 27th with this as absolutely perfect as it can possibly be.
I don't
Yeah.
think, okay,
Yeah.
as perfect as it could be, right? I'm not so sure that we could ever, or, I'm not the architect, and I'm not the landscaper, et cetera, but I'm not so sure that something can be presented that Mr. Whiteside would be 100% happy with, unless it was single-family homes.
Or a very,
And he probably wouldn't be altogether happy with single-family homes.
Probably not,
Unless the existing structure was preserved as part of that plan.
probably not.
I think. But I can see that with 3 houses, with the existing structure
6 units.
preserved.
So
Three
four-
houses.
No. 2 single families,
and
and then the existing one as sort of the centerpiece. I don't understand why people wouldn't think that was a pretty nice place to live, but
If you
That's
set them
just
far
my view.
back, and I mean, I know you're concerned about the traffic on the corner. You have enough room to set the houses far enough back from the corner that it shouldn't be an issue. You're not doing a 10-foot setback from the corner.
And
You
then,
are
of course,
pushing
they
them back.
become higher value houses than,
Right.
Residence C on 7,500 square feet.
That's true,
If you
3
build
houses.
2 new houses on there and rehab that, they're selling for a whole lot more than,
Yeah,
I
because they'd
would
have more
job on
land
it.
associated with them. Here's my sketch.
Is your wife's nickname the Saint?
We won't go into personal matters.
Yes, I think we can avoid personal comments. So come back to us with your best proposal. Reconsider the single-family route because it was requested of you. Reconsider how many units and how many buildings. Back to us with the most, let me underline, most attractive plan you can come up with. I would also suggest you will not probably have time to do full elevations and architectural renderings. But what I would do is I would go and take photographs of buildings that meet the design criteria that you're looking at. So for example, if you're presenting to us a building that has 3 units in it, find comparable buildings with details that you would find attractive and present those pictures to us. Because we're going to need to see what that looks like. If you're looking at a single building, do that.
We've tried it, yeah. We've been up at Quisic Brook, the 3rd level, et cetera, and looked.
I would not limit yourself to Milton. I would find the best architectural examples of what you're proposing from around the communities around the area.
What I
and show us
kind of
that.
envisioned was more like a South Shore type house, like a Hingham Duxbury type looking.
Then bring us
building.
pictures of that so we know exactly what you're talking about. And more importantly, the public knows exactly what you're talking about. Because at this point, not only are you selling it to us and attempting to persuade us to take it to town meeting, but this is your beginning of selling it to town meeting members. This is your public presentation. And you're going to want to be giving them as much information as possible. And I know you know what the answer from the diocese is, but I would strongly encourage you to take the actual printed timeline and explain the difficulties. And if you need me to speak to anybody to explain the timeline, I am, of course, happy to do that. So,
Just a bit of advice for
We've already
Anthony.
done that.
Sure.
I know,
Have you
been
ever
there.
heard of
but you
condex
haven't taken that
housing?
sheet. to
Yes.
Take that sheet.
We'll do that time.
And have you tried to apply this to the site?
I have not, but I'm
Needham
going to.
has, I'm pretty sure Needham has that zoning. I've done several condexes. They're houses that are connected by fences. And it's a zoning that maybe we can,
Look at.
it's like a cluster too.
Okay, I'll definitely look at that. And you say need them?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, I have to, check with them first. Hold on to
That's
that.
a
I know it's
non-debatable
privileged.
motion.
But I think it's nice to at least say goodbye to our guests before we adjourn, so. All set?
Thank you
You
very
can,
much
of course,
for your
call with
time.
any questions, and keep me updated as to your progress, so I can keep the board updated over the next 2 weeks. Let me know if you have any questions. Anthony,
I will, thank you.
we'll go from there. Thank you very much. We have a motion on the table.
Well,
Thanks for
I
having
enjoyed
us.
myself.
Yeah.
Thank God tomorrow's
Whoa,
Friday.
do I have a second and a,
Second?
Second.
all those?
Aye.
Aye.
Fine.
Condex housing.